Thank you, Lynette and fellow Toastmasters. I have to tell you that I have a very long love affair in Toastmasters with speech contests of every kind. I joined Toastmasters 30 years ago in October of 1990, and almost from the beginning, I was persuaded to join the speech contest circuit. That spring, so spring of 1991, we had a contest called the Canada Day contest, where we wrote and delivered a speech extolling the virtues of Canada. Well, Wild Oats Toastmasters persuaded me that I would do wonderfully in that contest. There was only one competitor at the club. Does that sound familiar to any of you? So on I went to the area. Back in those days, SaskPower was a great supporter of Toastmasters, and we had a lot of events there. The 13th floor auditorium was great because it had a wonderful seating area and a great stage for us to go onto and deliver our presentations. I had no idea what to expect from a contest, from an area contest. I barely knew what an area was, but off I went that night. I walked into the room and everyone was so welcoming. They shook my hand, they introduced themselves, and they wished me luck. We went on to do contest briefings, which again was a very foreign concept to me, but one of the things that we did, of course, was we drew for speaking order. I drew position number 2 of 3 speakers. Well, the first speaker who went on the stage was a gentleman named Robert Steadwell. Robert marched onto that stage and he took command. My jaw dropped to the floor and I thought, oh my gosh, how am I going to get on stage and follow that presentation? Well, they called my name. I gathered my notes. I placed them on the lectern and I delivered my speech. I'm still here, so obviously I didn't die. And in fact, I placed second in that contest, which I was very pleased about. Afterwards, again, everyone was so congratulatory, shaking my hand, telling me what a good job I had done, and hoping that I would come back onto the stage and to compete again. Ladies and gentlemen, I was hooked. Quite a few years later, it was at a division event this time at the Cathedral Neighborhood Center. I think it was the humorous contest. And again, I was competing against Robert Steadwell. Well, this time I was the winner. I beat Robert Steadwell. It made my heart so happy, not because I wished any ill will of Robert Steadwell, but because he was someone I looked up to and I admired. So to feel that I was in the same class of Toastmasters as him was a really, really great thing. As this story demonstrates, and as I told you from the beginning, I love contests and I've competed in them all. I've been in the evaluation contest many times, competed at the district a couple of times and won once. I've been in the international contest at the division, but never won. One of these years it'll be not my turn, but I'll deliver something that's good enough to win. I've been in the humorous contest and actually won twice at the division, never placed at the district, but I had a lot of fun nonetheless. And in table topics, I've won at the division several times. I won at the district once, I think it was back in 2014. And this past spring, I placed second. Contests are part of my Toastmasters DNA. And I hope that through today's presentation, I will not only teach you something about the Table Topics contest, which is why we're gathered here today, but I will also, I hope, transmit and instill some of that love that I have for contests in each of you so that you're ready to accept the challenge when it's presented to you. In today's presentation, I'm going to talk about the importance of table topics. We are going to examine the rules and the judging form because these are important aspects for every competitor to be aware of. We're going to have some discussion about the question because it's very, very important. We're going to talk a bit about technology, about Zoom and an online contest process, because the world of contests has changed now in pandemic, in COVID, and the fact that we have to deliver in this way. I'm going to share some of my tips and tricks, and as Lynette said, after the break we'll have a Q&A, and then we'll have some opportunity, I hope, for some practice. When we do those practice questions, we'll take a look at the responses in relation to the judging ballot. As Lynette mentioned, if you have any questions, please post them in the chat window and she will keep track of them. If it's something that needs to be addressed immediately, Lynette will interject. Otherwise, we'll wait until the conclusion of the contest. Let's talk first of all about the importance of table topics. And I know I'm speaking to the converted here, but really let's think about this. In Toastmasters, I consider there to be 3 cornerstones to the program. Each of our club meetings runs just a little bit different and we have some different atmospheres, but we all have 3 common aspects. We do prepared speeches, we have evaluations, and we practice impromptu speaking through table topics. That's at the heart of what we do in this organization. For some of our Toastmasters, table topics is the most important aspect because this is a skill that we use every single day. At work, we may be responding to a question from our boss, from our colleagues, or from a client. We may be in a meeting and need to present an idea, a report, whatever, answer a question. We are talking in committees that we're involved with our families and our friends. The ability to speak on our feet in an impromptu manner is a lifelong skill that's very, very important. I've heard it said that the table topics contest is of less importance than the humorous or the international. Humorous contest is a speech contest. It's very important. It tickles our funny bones. The international contest is very important because it goes on to the World Championship. But table topics is equally as important in its own way. I'd like to draw a bit of an analogy here to club officer positions and tell you about an experience that I had. I went to a club officer training session a while back when we still had these in person, and I was asked by someone I knew, well, what's your officer position? I said I was the club secretary, and their voice changed as they came back to me with, oh, I thought you'd have one of the important positions. I mean, really? All of our officers are important to the well-being of our club, and all of our contests are important and really speak to the skills that we are trying to develop. Table topics truly is integral to that. Having a good understanding of the rules and the judging form is an important part of this presentation, an important thing for you as well, because it will make you a better competitor. Let me talk first of all just a bit about the general rules. First of all, you must be a member in good standing and a club in good standing. In other words, you paid your dues and your club paid dues to Toastmasters International for at least 8 members. There is no requirement in this contest for you to have achieved a minimum number of speeches. In fact, as you listen to the bios of people who are competitors, many of our table topic winners are indeed new Toastmasters. Each competitor is giving a 2-minute presentation, disqualified less than 1 minute or more than 2.5 minutes. All contestants get the same question, which is supposed to be of general nature and not require any kind of specialized knowledge. As I mentioned, I do want to talk a bit about the question because it can really impact the outcome of the contest. In table topics, you are sequestered so that you can't have advanced knowledge of that question. If we were able to meet in person, you'd be sequestered in another room. We're online, so, oh, you are in another room, in a breakout room that's set up by our technology people. So you aren't able to hear the question. And you're not allowed to use any kind of electronic device that might allow somebody to send you advance warning about what the question is. There is a new rule in the rule book, which doesn't really impact table topics, but I want you to be aware of it because many contestants happen to compete in many contests. This rule states that you can be disqualified if you reference another contestant's presentation. And I have heard this in the past where a subsequent presenter will make reference to something that was said before, just incorporate it into their presentation. That's no longer allowed. Because you in table topics don't know in advance what the question is, that shouldn't be relevant. But in case you're in another contest, be aware and don't avoid that. I want to share my screen right now here for a moment because I want to talk about the judging ballot. Now, the judging form itself is organized into 3 categories, and each of these categories.
Connie,
yes.
Connie, we can't see your screen.
Okay, you can't? I thought I was sharing it. Sorry, thank you. Go back. See, technology and learning, right? Share screen.
That's why we're here, so we can all learn together.
There. Now have you got it?
Yes, thank you for that, Connie.
Oh, thank you for interjecting. I appreciate it. I knew something was wrong, actually, because I couldn't see myself in the corner. So I knew something had gone wrong. So thank you very much, Lynette. So the judging ballot is organized into 3 areas: content, delivery, and language. If you are a competitor, please take some time to be familiar with this form. You can go on to toastmasters.org and download it for yourself. There's no problem doing that. It's very, very easy. And don't forget to read the flip side, the back of the ballot, because it expands upon each of these categories. You will be a better competitor if you're familiar with the criteria. Content is king. Content is 55 points in total. Speech development is 30 and effectiveness is 25. Speech development includes things like the purpose of your point. What are you trying to get across? What's your structure like? Do you have an opening, a body, and a conclusion? What kinds of examples and what's the quality of the examples and the illustrations that you put into your table topic to make your point? Effectiveness is more subjective in the eyes of the judges, so it's a little bit more challenging to try to get across to them. But one of the things that it asks is, does the speech relate to the question or the topic? In other words, did you answer the question? In our club meetings, we'll sometimes tell our members to twist the question, to go in a different direction to enable you to answer, to segue the topic. Heck, politicians in a scrum do that all the time. But in a contest, you are expected to answer the question. Delivery is the next category, and delivery has a total of 30 points. 15 points for physical aspects and 15 points for voice. Physical aspects include things such as your appearance. Not are you the best dressed person, but do you look appropriate for what's happening today? What's your body language like? How well did you use your speaking area? We are going to talk about delivery and physical aspects in the context of Zoom and online meetings because definitely there is a big effect on how we deliver. Voice is 15 points, including the flexibility of your pitch and the variety of your rate and volume. A good voice should be clearly heard and the words easily understood by the audience. I have seen contests won or lost on delivery where you had competitors who were more or less equal in terms of their content. So be aware of this and do your utmost to do your best in the area of delivery. Language is the final 15 points. Appropriateness is 10. The language that you use should promote clear understanding of your thoughts, and it should fit the question. Correctness is 5 points. It involves things such as the proper use of grammar and correct pronunciation of words, because these skills show that you as the speaker are the master of the words that you are using. I've got to stop sharing here because that's for the end. We need to think also now, as I mentioned, about Zoom, technology, and resources that are available to you as a competitor. The first recommendation in this area that I will give to you is to sign up for a free Zoom account. This will enable you to log on and to practice. You can set up a meeting with 1 or 2 other, or 3 or 4, or whatever number of people that you want to drill some questions at you, allow you to practice and give you some feedback. You can even record your presentation and watch it later. I tried to do that as I was practicing for this presentation. However, technology and I do not always get along, and I messed up the saving process, so I wasn't able to watch myself. I'll certainly go on the YouTube channel afterwards and take a look at what this presentation looked like once Dan has got it uploaded. Another thing about Zoom and online is to know what your screen size is. Know where you are positioned in the screen so that you can have the maximum impact for your audience, whether you move closer or back away, go side to side. Always be aware of where you are in relation to your screen. In Toastmasters, we are drilled about eye contact. And in an ordinary audience setting, in a live setting, that's very easy because you look at all of the members of the audience. When you are online, though, your audience is on the other side of that camera. And so you need to practice looking into the camera. I find that a little bit challenging because most of the time my eye wanders to myself on the screen, and that precludes the eye contact. So practice that, because it certainly is a skill to be learned. Another thing about online is to use gestures that fit into your screen, and by and large that's going to be your hands, because depending on where you're positioned on your screen and in your room, you may have more or less room to work with, but hand visibility, and try to avoid covering your face. Now, something I'm very guilty of is gestures that are way too fast and they become blurry and are a bit of a distraction. However, if your response to table topics or your speech in general involves speed, perhaps you were asked a question about a journey that was a train trip, and you say, "We zoomed down the track," and that zoom was accompanied by a fast, blurry motion, that's appropriate and not such a distraction. Do your best with your lighting and sound. This is a tricky area because we all come to this process with different equipment, different rooms and positioning, and different lighting. So all I can say is do your best. Understand the limits of your space, do what you can to improve it when you can, and practice, practice, practice. Another thing about the online world that I would warn you about is to be careful with your virtual backgrounds, because they can be a distraction. In table topics especially, I would recommend that you keep it simple so that the focus is on you. When you go into a contest setting on Zoom, you will go to a briefing session, and to prevent you from perhaps being a little bit lost or a bit challenged, not knowing what to expect, let me give you a few tips about what you might encounter in Zoom and as far as those Zoom tips. First of all, you might be, and you likely will be, asked to rename yourself. This is an important part of the Zoom contest because it enables the technology person to get you into the right breakout room. It might be speaker, Connie, or whatever. They'll tell you how they want you to rename yourself. Do it. Very simple. Just right click on your image and it will give you the option to rename. Another important thing about the Zoom meeting is the view that you select. I like in most meetings to have a grid view where I can see all of the different participants across the screen, or 16 of them or however many there would be. I like that. But if I'm speaking, I change my view. First of all, I pin the timer. So if there's a timer, I'll hover over their image, right click, and there's an option to pin that image. And then I will go to speaker view. What that does for you as a participant is it puts you front and center and large on your screen so you can see what you look like. And it will keep the timer up at the top for you so that you're always being able to keep track of that time. Manage your mute, unmute, and camera buttons so that you obey the instructions. Most of the time you'll be mute and your camera will be off except when you're speaking. The exception to this will be in the breakout room because you'll need to keep your camera and microphone on during briefing so that you can ask questions, and also so that the person doing the briefing can keep track, can know that everyone's there. Also in the breakout room, while you're waiting to be called on to speak, there are some Zoom considerations. In that situation, you will be under the supervision of the Sergeant at Arms. You will you should be required to keep your camera on, to look into the camera, and maybe even have your hands visible to the Sergeant at Arms. That is so that everyone knows that you're not reaching over to your phone or some other device that might give you a clue that somebody might be sending you the question. I'm not trying to impugn anyone's integrity in this room because I know that we're all honorable people who would not cheat in a contest. However, Toastmasters International has put this rule in for a reason, so I would hazard a guess that at some contest, some Toastmaster has transgressed, and therefore this rule was required. Lastly, in this area, I will tell you that District 42 has technology resources that I encourage you to take advantage of. These are technological experts who can be booked for a consultation time to help you review. They aren't going to evaluate your presentation, but they'll review your setup. They'll look at your lighting. They'll give you some suggestions on how you can improve and put your best foot forward. I used that this past spring when I competed in evaluation and table topics, and it was a very useful consultation. Take advantage of these if you have the option to do so. Now, the question is very important, and it's not something that you can control, but it can have an impact on our contests. The first time that I competed in table topics, I still remember, not the exact words, but the gist of the question was something about, if I had the opportunity to redecorate the legislature, how would I do that? Really? I mean, I knew what the legislature was, but I was pretty new and pretty green, and I really fumbled with that. I asked a number of Toastmasters that I know about best and worst questions that they have heard. The worst questions were those cited as being political, religious, controversial, too specific, requiring specific knowledge, have a yes/no response only. For example, some of the examples that I was provided with: should burqas be allowed in Canada? Controversial, might require specialized knowledge because you might not know what that's all about, and could actually be prejudicial in the eyes of some judges. What does the Queen do for Canada? Some of us might be aware, but if you're new to this country, maybe you don't know. Should Canada reinstate the death penalty? Controversial, I would think, and a question that I personally wouldn't want to have to answer in a contest format. Questions that can be answered yes and no and aren't open-ended was bad. But on the flip side, questions that are difficult to contain within the 2-minute framework that we have. And the example here was, what are the top 5 things you did this week? 5 things in 2 minutes? I think you could list them, but would you really be able to expand upon them and use illustrations to make your point in the space of 2 minutes? I think it would be difficult. Things that are technical, specific, or assume that all contestants have the same life experience, also something to be avoided. One Toastmaster told me that they were at a contest where the question was asked about what was your favorite TV cartoon character growing up. One of the competitors in this contest didn't have a TV growing up and really was at a loss to properly answer the question. Another Toastmaster said that they were asked their opinion on a medical procedure in a table topics contest. That's pretty highly specialized knowledge in my books. Or what was the best invention that came from the Industrial Revolution? That may or may not be in your wheelhouse at all. Another worst by 2 people was mentioned as questions that have a long-winded preamble before getting to the point. I'll read to you one of those because it is indeed very long. On March 11th, 2020, the World Health Organization declared a pandemic. They did this as COVID-19 was in 114 countries. Since then, COVID-19 has continued to increase and more people's lives have been uprooted. We have also felt the effects here. What is the biggest thing you have dealt with during this pandemic? Now, the preamble is almost as long as what your response will be. And in my mind, that's not appropriate in a contest or even in a table topic session at your club. The best questions were cited as those that were simple, short, open-ended, and allowed for creativity. Questions about experiences that anyone could answer, no matter what their life situation and background might be. Now, most of the feedback that I got was on poor questions, but again, open-ended, creativity, allows for storytelling. Those were cited as really great. Now, you, as a competitor, don't have control over the question. That's a for sure. However, maybe you're going to be the person who's designing a question for a contest, because this is a table topic session overall, not just for competitors. Or it might be something that you can consider when you're the table topics master at your club. Let me tell you a little bit about some tips that I can offer and some things that I've learned. The first thing is to think about how you are going to respond, because there are many different approaches that can be taken on crafting a table topics response. At Wild Oats, we have an annual speechcraft, and as part of our speechcraft, one of our education sessions is on table topics. Bev Ward typically delivers this, and she shares 5 different types of responses that you might want to consider when answering a table topics question. You might want to use a 1, 2, 3 approach. There are 3 reasons why I like snow. First of all, snow is very pretty, especially when it sparkles in the night sky. Second of all, snow enables me to be fit because I enjoy participating in winter sports such as snowshoeing and skiing and ice skating. I don't, but don't tell anybody. And the third reason why I really like snow is because when it's cold outside, there's no better place than in my living room in front of my fireplace with a good drink in my hand. One approach that you could consider. You could use chronology. Things started and continued and finished. So my love affair with snow started when I was a toddler and my mom shooed my sister and I out the door. We loved tossing the fluffy stuff in the air and we giggled as it landed on our heads. As I got older, my love affair with snow continued because I learned to enjoy the winter sports that were part of life in Saskatchewan, snowshoeing and sledding and ice skating. But now that I'm an older adult, my love affair with snow and winter continues in front of my fireplace with a good drink in my hand and the cold banished to outside. A third way that you could respond to table topics might be to use a pros and cons approach or an advantages and a disadvantages approach. Some of the advantages to snow are, first of all, that it's very pretty to look at. And goodness knows our world looks very gray after all the leaves have fallen. Snow also provides some much needed moisture in our dry climate. And it's a great way for us to get outside and enjoy some physical activity, whether we're snowshoeing, sledding, ice skating, whatever we would like to do. On the other hand, though, snow is not all good. It takes a lot of effort to clear your driveway and your sidewalk if you're forced to do that yourself and don't have somebody else doing it. The city spends a ton of money clearing snow off our roadways. And as a driver or even a pedestrian, plowing through that snow or driving through that snow is a real cumbersome thing. A fourth approach might be to use a good, better, and best approach. So a good reason to like snow is that it's very pretty, and I love to look at it sparkle in the night sky. A better reason to like snow might be that it is a great way to get some exercise as I go snowshoeing and cross-country skiing. But the best reason to enjoy snow in winter overall is that my fireplace keeps the cold out and I enjoy it with a good drink in my hand. The fifth way that you could respond to a table topics question might be to tell a story. I do love snow. This question reminds me of my love affair with snow that began when my little sister, who's a year younger than I, used to go outside and enjoy winter activities. We would throw the snow up and laugh as it landed on us. We would create paths in the snow and play games like duck, duck, goose, goose. And we would drag our sleds off to the nearest hill and enjoy sliding around. Oh yes, the times that we enjoyed snow are close to my heart. Those are just some of the angles that you could take as you consider how to answer the question that may be posed to you. Now that you've thought about how to answer, let's think about a couple of other things that I consider very important. Be cognizant of what's happening in the world. Now, the question shouldn't require specialized knowledge, but it may require you to express an opinion about something that's happening. For example, in one table topics contest, I was asked, what would I say to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau if I had the chance? Now, some people would say that might be overly political, but to me, it was right in my wheelhouse, and I had no problems answering that question. Let's talk again about the segue. No, 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 not in a contest. You must answer the question or face deduction of marks in the effectiveness category. Nervousness. Nervousness is natural and it is okay. There's nothing wrong with being a little bit nervous. You don't want it to overpower you, but you want to channel that nervousness. In our Toastmasters lingo, you want to make those butterflies in your stomach fly into formation. So don't be scared of your nervousness, channel it, but as much as possible, try to relax and enjoy the experience because it is truly an enjoyable experience. One of the most important tips that I can offer you has to do with the clock. Remember, the clock starts when you start, not when the question is finished. So take some time, collect your thoughts, think about the approach that you want to take in answering the question before you start to communicate with the audience. The rules do state that you cannot delay the contest unnecessarily, but there is nothing wrong. And in fact, I highly recommend that you take that minute, center yourself, and then start to communicate. I'd like to tell you to remember that judges will do what judges will do. And this is another area that you have no control over. A couple of times at district events and district contests where I didn't place, people came up to me afterwards and said, Oh my gosh, you were so good. Oh, I can't believe you didn't place blah, 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 blah. Oh, well, I could not control how those judges marked their ballots. As long as I did my best on that given day, I would come off the stage being very pleased with that performance, that delivery, regardless of the outcome. And I hope that you also will take that attitude into your competition experiences. Don't worry about the judges, worry about yourself, and enjoy your time on stage, regardless of the outcome. When Lynette and Laura Wingard and I were meeting in advance of this so that we could talk a little bit about what they were looking for me to present, Laurel at one point interjected and she said, "I beat you at a division table topics contest." That made my heart very happy, because I enjoy celebrating the successes of all Toastmasters in all situations. I truly, truly do. That's one of the reasons why I've stayed in this organization for 30 years. And in fact, I think my heart was warmed just a little bit because maybe, as my initial story told you, I was her Robert Steadwell, that she looked up to me, and it made me feel good anyways. I hope that I've provided you with some knowledge that's going to help you in table topics, whether it's at a contest level or even in your club. And I hope that some of my enthusiasm for contests overall, and especially for table topics, has come across this virtual world and it been instilled in each of you. Now, I want to share my screen one more time. Let's see if I can get to this. Oh gosh, here we go. We're not advancing. Oh, there we go. In the latest issue of the Toastmasters magazine, there was an article on spontaneous speaking, tips and tricks for becoming a better table topic speaker. So I invite you, in fact, I encourage you to check out the Toastmasters magazine. Remember, you have to do that online because you may come up with some more tips that I haven't been able to cover here today. So now that's it for me. And I would welcome any questions that you might have.
Connie, I have a couple questions in the chat here.
Okay.
And I would just like to encourage anyone, if you have a question, put your hand up or turn your screen on, put your hand up, and we'll acknowledge you. One question here is, when they ask the question and your mind goes completely blank, what is a way to recover?
That is a tough one. Repeating the question after you take a minute to think and see, okay, how can I approach this? And then you can say, repeat the question to buy yourself a little bit of time. But honestly, that's one that's really, really tough, because if you go completely blank, you may have to segue and twist the question around, knowing that you're going to lose some points for effectiveness, but still putting forward some sort of response. I'm sorry, that's the best that I can do. But practice, 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 and that will be less likely to happen.
Thank you for that, Connie. I saw Terry Taharski had his hand up. Terry, did you have a question?
Sure. Thanks, Connie. Could you repeat some of the categories you said that you thought you could attack a problem or a topic?
Oh, those 5 methods?
There was best, worst,
yeah,
and better, something like
sure.
that. There was calendar, chronological.
Yeah. You can use a 1, 2, 3 approach. Like, there are 3 reasons why. Chronological, things started, continued, and finished. Pros and cons. Good, better, best. And tell a story. Coincidentally, a lot of those are in that article in the Toastmasters magazine.
Are there any other questions for Connie?
I've got a question, please.
Go ahead, Kelly.
Okay. I am in a bit of, I don't know if you'd say an awkward situation, but I don't have a camera on my computer here. but I do have it on my phone. I will admit, though, I'm a bit reluctant to use the phone in a contest because for two reasons. One, the last time I used the phone with Zoom and I had the camera enabled, there were some connection difficulties and I kept freezing up, getting disconnected from the meeting, that sort of thing. But when I came back on the computer, everything was fine. The other reason is that being a visually impaired person, I use access technology on the phone, and that speaks to me, so I know when what button I'm on, so I can, let's say, unmute myself when the time is right. But I'm a little nervous about that because I don't want the voice to be bleeding in, as you might say.
For sure.
So my question is, can you get penalized if you don't use video during an online contest?
Well, you would lose marks. I think you would lose points because there would be no delivery that they could mark you on. And that's 30 points as far as I could stand to be corrected by someone who has a better command of the rules than I have. But the physical aspects of delivery would be something that you would lose. You certainly could still get your 15 points for voice. Most definitely, but the 15 points for delivery is where you would lose out for the most part. But I don't know of anything else that I can suggest to you, Kelly. I'm not sure if anybody else in the audience has a suggestion that they could give. Is there someone else, or is there another person perhaps with a laptop who could help you and provide you with some technology that you could work with?
No, I'm the only one in the house here, of course. So there's that. I mean, I think my plan was, because I'm one of the contestants in the Table Topics contest this Sunday, my plan was to just come on using the computer,
right,
which doesn't have the camera, but the connection is a lot better. I find.
I think
I'd like to recognize Loretta Gibbons. I think she had something to add.
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to remind Kelly about the opportunity for getting some tech advice.
Yes.
So maybe they could help you with your phone and see what the best way to utilize your phone, because that's all you have. That would be my suggestion, would be to...
I agree.
And I don't know where you get that information. It's on the D42 website?
It's on the D42 website is where I had found it before.
And that's free, right?
Yes, it would be a 15-minute consult, or at least that's what I had in the spring, Kelly. It was just a 15-minute consult. There were 4 different tech experts that I could consult with. And so I just booked a time and was able to make use of them.
I just had an offer here, Connie, in the chat. We have something here in chat. Marta, Kelly Marta would like to get in touch with you. She says, I can drive and lend him my camera in Moose Jaw. So I think I'll let Kelly and Marta have that discussion offline. Thank you, Marta.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question. Yes, could you please put that name and the link again in the chat box about that which appears on TI about table topics?
About the article in the Toastmasters magazine?
Yes.
Sure. What I'll do is I will, at the break, I will cut and paste it into the chat window. Okay.
Okay, sure. And I have another question, madam. Now, normally, do we get a table topic question with 2 segments? I mean, at club level, I got like that. For an example, are you living to work for, working to live? Something like that. If so, no, that is an easy one. I mean, my question was a bit, harder one, but it contained 2 segments. Will it be the same at the area level, madam?
It really is at the discretion of the person writing the contest, the question itself. And some questions are worse than others. Marg has something that she wants to contribute there. Marg? No? So it really depends. Sometimes it would be, as I said, I've had questions, how would you redecorate the legislature? Other people have asked, you know, there are really good and some very, very poor questions that are out there.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'm sorry, I can't offer you anything more, but it really is at the discretion of the person who's writing the question. And perhaps some of the people writing the question are on this call today and will heed some words and give us great questions for all of these area and division contests coming up.
Mark, you have a question?
I do. I was talking to someone the other day about contests, and they said they were only going to have one question. Most of the contests I have been in have had 3 questions and the first contestant picks. Is there any right or wrong to whether it's just one question or there's a selection?
It's not in the rules. In fact, actually, I've got the rules in front. I've got the rules right here. But the rules, I believe, simply state that the question will be written by the contest chair. And whether or not they approach it with 3 possibilities or 1, I think that's at their discretion.
I thought that every contestant had to have the same question.
Oh, yes, but every contestant has to have the same question. But as Mark said, sometimes, like when we had them live or even when we have them virtually, the Toastmaster might have 3 written out, and the first contestant will be asked, which envelope do you want me to take? And then that will be the question that all of the competitors give.
Another tip that I'd just like to give to anybody that is being the Toastmaster is please have that question written out. So you read it correctly to each participant.
Yes.
Because even changing a word can change a meaning to the whole question. So make sure that it's written out and you read it exactly as it's written out to each person. You don't want to give anyone a disadvantage.
I was actually years ago in a contest, or no, I was a judge at the contest where the Toastmaster did not write it out, and the question twisted very slightly from competitor to competitor. And we had to have a meeting at the end to discuss, did we think that we could judge fairly based on the fact that the question wasn't exactly identical for each one.
Are there any other questions?
I have a quick one, just on
Go
the
ahead,
topic of online meetings and problems. Do you know what the rules are if a speaker disconnects during their 2 minutes?
Marg does.
I believe they have 30 seconds to come back on. If they can't get back on in that 30 seconds, the tech team contacts them and tries to bring them back on. So if anyone is a timer, part of the timing duties is to note down the last thing the person said, because they can come back in, they're given an extra 30 seconds, but they have to start from where they left off. So if the last thing you said was Mr. Jones took me skiing, then that's where you would pick up your tail and tell it from there. So yeah, there's some time limits in there.
Thank you. Bev has a question. Bev?
It's not actually a question. I just wanted to point out that Toastmasters International sent out an amendment document in March, which is still in force, which talks about variations to the rules or supplements to the rules as a result of doing things online in COVID. And so District 42 has determined how they're going to manage those things. Not all districts are managing them exactly the same, but we still need to follow the rules. And you can't just cut somebody off because they can't get back for a minute and stuff like that. So there's specific things in there that everybody can reference. It was on the Toastmasters International website a couple of weeks ago. I saw it.
Thank you for that, Bev. And Luke, did that answer your question?
Yes, it did.
Okay. I have another one in the chat here, Connie, for you.
Okay.
I have been told previously to never repeat the question as it uses up some time, but yet you have said that I should repeat it if my brain goes blank. Can you explain?
Well, I'm suggesting that repeating the question if your brain goes blank is what might allow you to buy a little bit of time to collect your thoughts and just determine how it is that you're going to answer that question. I do agree with your comment that for the most part, you should not repeat the question because you want to utilize your time most effectively, and repeating the question is not the best way to do that. If you are absolutely stuck though and skunked as to what it is that you're going to say, repeating the question might help you to start to channel your thoughts. That's where I was coming from there.
Okay, thank you. To that person, if you want to, if she answered your question, good, great. If not, message me again. Is there any other questions before we go to break?
I just have one comment about that last question.
Yes, Loretta?
You can also, if you, like, I know you're getting tongue-tied in this instance, but you could repeat it to yourself in your mind as well. That might help.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I think Division B, you were commenting?
I just want to share that I uploaded the online exception letter that I got from TI, which is very specific to COVID-19. Scenarios of online contest for Luke Thiessen.
Okay.
Or anyone else.
Okay, thank you very much. That's Arunima, the Division B director speaking. So I do see it in the chat. Thank you very much, Arunima. Any questions or comments before we move to break? Because I really want to practice table topics and get some feedback from Connie.
Let's do it.
I know. So if there are questions, I'm sure, Connie, you're open to questions after if people message.
Oh, yes, or during the break, because I'm just going to go replenish my hot water, and then I'll be sitting here if somebody wants to just chat.
Okay, so I am going to call things to a break now, and I just want to thank you so much, Connie, for that presentation and for the Q&A afterwards. Could I have everybody please give our guest, Connie, a great round of applause? Yay! You can even do this if you want. Or put your hand stamp on. Thank you. I'm now going to call for a 5-minute bio break, as they call them. Oh, we got a heart. We got a couple hearts. Look at you, Connie. It's like Valentine's Day here. So please take your bio break and come back. If I see everybody back here before the 5 minutes is up.
Oh, there's our
we got a timer there. Then we'll start. So when you come back, put your camera on so I know you're back. Thank you very much.